What's going on, everybody? I hope you're all well, and welcome back to Dragon Age Origins. Now, as always, this is not a main episode of the Let's Play. This is going to be a Codex read-in lore discussion episode. If that's not something you're interested in, then go ahead and click away now and wait for another main episode of the Let's Play. If that is something you're interested in, then let's dive into these Codex and get our nerd on. We should have plenty since I postponed it, so we should have a lot to dive in. You see we're getting pretty up there with our Codex count. We've almost finished a couple of these categories. So magic and religion. We have two things in here. I believe we already read Andraste, Bride of the Maker, so the founding of the Chantry. Cordelius Draken, king of the city-state of Ayesleigh, was a man of uncommon ambition. In the year 15 Ancient, the young king began construction of a great temple dedicated to the Maker, and declared that by its completion, he would not only have united the warring city-states of the south, he would have brought Andrastian belief to the world. In 3 Ancient, the temple was completed. There, in its heart, Draken knelt before the eternal flame of Andraste, and was crowned ruler of the Empire of Ayesleigh. His first act as emperor, to declare the Chantry as the established Andrastian religion of the Empire. It took 3 years and several hundred votes before Arlessa of Montsimard was elected to lead the new Chantry. Upon her coronation as divine, she took the name Justinia, in honor of the disciple who recorded Andraste's songs. In that moment, the ancient era ended and the divine age began. From Ferelden, Folklore and History by Sister Patrine, Chantry Scholar. Demonic Possession. Why do demons seek to possess the living? History claims that they are malevolent spirits, the first children of the Maker, angry at their creator for turning from them, and jealous of those creations he considered superior. They stare across the veil at the living and do not understand what they see, yet they know they crave it. They desire life, they pull the living across the veil when they sleep, and prey on their psyche with nightmares. Whenever they can, they cross the veil into our world to possess it outright. We know that any demon will seek to possess a mage, and upon doing so will create an abomination. Most of the world does not know, however, that the strength of an abomination depends entirely on the power of the demon that possesses the mage. This is true, in fact, of all possessed creatures. One demon is not the same as any other. Demons can, for instance, be classified. Enchanted Brahm's categorization of demons into that portion of the psyche they primarily prey upon has held since the Tower Age. According to Brahm, the weakest and most common of demons are those of rage. They are the least intelligent and most prone to violent outbursts against anything living. They expend their energies quickly, the most powerful of them exhibiting great strength and occasionally the ability to generate fire. Next are the demons of hunger. In a living host, they become cannibals and vampires, and within the dead, they feed upon the living. Theirs are the power of draining, both of life force and of mana. Next are the demons of sloth, the first on Brahm's scale that are capable of true intelligence. In its true form, this demon is known as a shade, a thing which is nearly indistinct and invisible. For such is sloth's nature, it hides and stalks, unaware, and when confronted, it sows fatigue and apathy. Demons of desire are amongst the most powerful, and are the ones most likely to seek out the living and actively trick them into a deal. These demons will exploit anything that can be coveted, wealth, power, lust, and they will always end up getting far more than they give. A desire demon's province is that of illusions and mind control. We've actually seen sloth and demons of desire both take their little holds on the circle. We dealt with multiple of both. Strongest of all demons are those of pride. These are the most feared creatures to loose upon the world. Masters of magic and in possession of vast intellect, they are the true schemers. It is they who seek most strongly to possess mages, and will bring other demons across the veil in numbers to achieve their own ends, although what that might be has never been discovered. A greater pride demon, brought across the veil, would threaten the entire world. From the Maker's first children, by Beta, senior enchanter of Ostwick, 812 blessed. Pride being the root of all sin, it does make sense, again, that pride would be the strongest of all demons. We will actually see a pride demon or two throughout this game. We'll be dealing with one, so we'll get to see just how juicy they can actually be. Sloth was pretty up there too. He managed to send our entire party into the Fade and Sleep world. No small feat. Especially considering Wynne is like a a master creation mage. She knows what she was doing, and she still fell into the little slumber that it had us all in. Thedas Calendar. For most good folk, the details about calendar have little purpose. It is useful only for telling them when the summer day festival will be held, when the snows are expected to begin, and when the harvest must be complete. The naming of the years are a matter for historians and taxmen, and few, if pressed, could even tell you the reason that our current age is named after dragons. It is 930 Dragon Age, the 30th year of the 9th age since the crowning of the Chantry's first divine. Each age is exactly 100 years, with the next age's name chosen in the 99th year. The scholars in Valrayo advise the Chantry of portents seen in that 99th year, and Chantry authorities pore over the research for months before the divine announces the name of the imminent age. The name is said to be an omen of what is to come, of what the people of Thedas will face for the next 100 years. So the divine is the one that actually names the year. It's an interesting thing they would throw over to the divine. The current age was not meant to be the Dragon Age. Throughout the last months of the Blessed Age, the Chantry was preparing to declare the Sun Age, named for the symbol of the Orlesian Empire, which at that time sprawled over much of the south of Thedas and controlled both Ferelden and what is now Navarra. It was to be a celebration of Orlesian imperial glory. But as the rebellion in Ferelden reached a head and the Battle of Riverdane was about to begin, a peculiar event occurred. A rampage, the rising of a dreaded high dragon. Dragons have been thought practically extinct since the days of the Navarran dragon hunts, and they say that to see this great beast rise from the frostbacks was both majestic and terrifying. As the rampage began and the high dragon decimated the countryside in its search for food, the elderly divine Faustine II abruptly declared the Dragon Age. Some say the divine was declaring support for Orlais in the battle against Ferelden, since the dragon is an element of the Dufayal family heraldry of King Megran, the so-called usurper king of Ferelden. Be that as it may, the High Dragon's rampage turned towards the Orlesian side of the Frostback Mountains, killing hundreds and sending thousands more fleeing to the northern coast. The Ferelden rebels won the Battle of Riverdane, ultimately securing their independence. Many thus think that the Dragon Age will come to represent a time of violent and dramatic change for all of Thedas. It remains to be seen. From the studies Theologian by Brother Genitive, Chantry Scholar, 925 Dragon, Lake Calenhad. The waters of Lake Calenhad are steeped in legends. The Avar people say that it was once the site of Belenus, the mountain which stood at the center of the world, from which Korth the Mountain Father surveyed the earth and sky. But it was destroyed in the battle between Korth and the serpent Nathramar, leaving only a vast crater behind. When the Lady of the Skies saw that Belenus was gone, she wept, and her tears filled the crater, making the lake. The Tevinters believed the waters of Lake Calenhad were blessed by Ezekiel, god of mysteries, and that those who drank from them were granted special insights. This was why they built the great tower on an island in the middle of the lake, hoping the powers of the lake would aid their magical research. But most of us know the legend of King Calenhad, which gives the place its name. It is said that Calenhad Therin spent a year and a day in the Tower of the Magi. Each day he drew a single cupful of water from the lake and carried it to the Fomari at the top of the tower. By magic, each cup of water was forged into a single ring of the mail armor the circle gave to Calenhad. In that armor, made from the lifeblood of the land itself, no blade could strike him, no arrow pierce him, so long as he stood on Ferelden soil. From Thedas, Myths and Legends by Sister Patrine, Chantry Scholar. So the armor was actually enchanted with the land, and his immunity only went as far as to him being in Ferelden. If he left Ferelden to go to Orlais, for example, then he would be totally vulnerable. Interesting to know. Redcliffe. King Calenhad Therin once famously declared, "The fate of Redcliffe is the fate of all Ferelden." Certainly, the castle is the first and last defense for the Soul Land route into Ferelden, and the country has never fallen to any force that did not first capture Redcliffe. The castle, which despite being 3 times captured, is popularly described as unassailable. Also guards one of the largest and most prosperous towns in Ferelden. Redcliffe village is well situated near the mountain pass to Orzammar and the Orlesian border, and so serves as a center of foreign trade. For these reasons, Redcliffe is accounted an Arling despite the smallness of the domain. The inhabitants of Redcliffe village are primarily fishermen or merchants who ship dwarven goods through the pass from Ayesleigh to Denerim. When the entire village smells of smoked fish on certain late autumn mornings, the merchants in their finery do their utmost to pretend otherwise. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genitive. Alistair, he's going to have a update here. So we'll just go ahead and read it from the top. You know, one good thing about the Blight is how it brings people together. Alistair was a novice Templar when Duncan recruited him into the Grey Wardens, or rescued him, as Alistair would say. His mother was a serving girl, who died when Alistair was very young. He was raised by Eamon Gwarin, Earl of Redcliffe for a time. The Earl's wife, Isolde, suspected the reason her husband took an interest in the welfare of her servant's child was that Alistair was Eamon's son. She insisted that the boy be sent away to the Chantry. Isolde's suspicions were unfounded, however. Alistair was not the Eamon's son, but King Maric's. Eamon sheltered the boy to hide his existence from Crean Rowan, Eamon's sister. Alistair is fascinated by magic, even as his life is defined by fighting its darker manifestations. He has a fondness for strange runestones and figural studies of arcane creatures. Now, this whole thing about Isolde feeling threatened by Alistair and sending him off to the Chantry, that's rough. That doesn't paint her in a very good light. That just screams insecurity and jealousy and all kinds of pettiness. Like he'd be somehow, like a bastard could contend her future children for the earldom. It's just not possible. There's no reason for her to do this other than her being a bitter, petty woman. But Isolde does sound Orlesian, so that would explain the reason she's like that. After all, in the land of Ayesleigh, it is all about reputation. Arlessa Isolde. For the one who delivers the sacred ashes of Our Lady will have the esteem of Redcliffe, and all the riches it is in my power to grant. The Arling of Redcliffe was a source of constant trouble for Emperor Revolt during the occupation. It was rumoured that since each new report sent the Emperor into a fit of violent rage, his court had taken to poisoning messengers before they could deliver their accounts. Isolde's family was the 10th to be given the difficult task of governing Redcliffe, and since most of the previous Arls had either been murdered by their bands or beheaded by the Emperor, they did not approach the job with a great deal of enthusiasm. Isolde met Eamon, not realizing he was the rightful heir to her father's domain, and quickly became smitten with him for being part of the resistance. Never mind that it was her family he was resisting. Perhaps a bit too romantic for her own good, she insisted upon staying behind with Eamon when the rest of her family was driven out. She's Orlesian through and through. She was actually the occupier who held these lands, and she fell in love with Eamon, smooth as he is. Since we know how she handled Alistair, though, it seems you can't take the Ayesleigh out of the Orlesian completely, no matter how much time they spend in a better land. Leliana. In the cloister, away from the fuss and the flurry of the cities, I found peace, and in that stillness, I could hear the Maker. A lay sister of the Chantry, who can beat the stuffing out of trained mercenaries, would be notable enough, but one who also claims to have been sent to fight the Darkspawn by the Maker himself is unusual, to say the least. She joined Alistair and Apparition in Lothering, insisting that she would prove useful. There's more to Leliana than had even been apparent at Lothering, however. She spent much of her life as a bard in Ayesleigh, a minstrel, assassin, and spy employed by the nobles of Val Rayo in their elaborate game of intrigue. Leliana takes care to honor the Lothering cloister that took her in, and keeps symbols of Andraste blessings close to her heart. We actually have some of those to give her next time we're in camp. We do have that little Chantry amulet that we found. Now we have Morrigan. Witch of the Wilds, such idle fancies, those legends. Have you no minds of your own? Of herself, Morrigan says little. She does not deny being a Witch of the Wilds, but beyond that, everything about her is in question. Her mother claims to be Flemeth. If that's true, the Morrigan might well be a very powerful witch, but the tales of the daughters of Flemeth tell of twisted, monstrous women who can kill a man with fear. She was made to accompany the surviving Grey Wardens, the payment, Flemeth said, for saving their lives at the Tower of Ishal. Morrigan's critical eye is not reserved solely for others. Knowing or not, she has a simple fondness for jewelry, and is very particular about her appearance. And if you remember, she did tell us a little story about a golden mirror. We'll be on the lookout for one of those. Wynne. I will not lie motionless in a bed, with coverlets up to my chin, waiting for death to claim me. Wynne's talent became apparent early on. particularly her skill at healing magic. She was well liked by all her mentors and was recognized as an exceptionally gifted student. Even the Templars who watched her could not deny that she represented the best the Circle had to offer. She was an intelligent young woman who possessed a quiet confidence and maturity beyond her years. She spent many years mentoring apprentices within the Circle, and her peers thought so highly of her that she was asked to be First Enchanter Irving's successor, but she refused, saying she had no desire to work in the upper echelons. When word reached the tower of King Caelan's call to arms, Wynne volunteered to go to Ostagar. For Wynne, the printed word is a window to true understanding. A scholar by heart, she feels that what people commit to the page is sacred by definition, which I suppose is a hint that she might like books as a gift. Speaking of books, we have a couple things in books and songs. Ballad of Ayesleigh. The wind that stirs their shallow graves carries their song across the suns. Heed our words, hear our cry, the grey are sworn, in peace we lie. Heed our words, hear our cry, our names recalled, we cannot die. When darkness comes and swallows light, heed our words, and we shall rise. From the Ballad of Ayesleigh, said to have been written after the Battle of Ayesleigh, which ended the Fourth Blight, 520 Exalted. So that is actually a little Grey Warden poem right there. Very nice. It has a nice flow to it. The Legend of Calenhad, Chapter 1. Prior to the crowning of King Calenhad, Ferelden was little more than a collection of independent Arlings and Turniers that warred on each other constantly over petty matters. Calenhad was born in 510 Exalted as the third son of a high-ever merchant on hard times. He was eventually sent to a distant cousin, a poor young knight named Sir Foranan, who made Calenhad his squire and dog handler. As the tale goes, Sir Foranan and his squire became caught up in one of the wars of unity at the time. Morrigan was a strong but generally disliked man who was making a bid for kingship. Foranan's own lord, a young fool of an Arl named Tenedor, no older than Calenhad, was besieged by Morrigan's forces at his castle, today known as Westhill. When Morrigan called Tenedor out to parley, the young Arl asked for a volunteer from among the squires, someone who could masquerade as Tenedor in the parley party. Calenhad kneeled before Tenedor and asked for the honor. Much to Tenedor's and Sir Foranan's dismay, Calenhad immediately identified himself to Arl Morrigan. When asked by the Arl why he was here, Calenhad explained that he had been asked to take the place of his lord. The Arl said that he had planned to kill Tenedor. Was Calenhad willing to die in his lord's place as well? Calenhad impressed Morrigan and his allies by saying that he was. Morrigan offered Calenhad a place in his own squire, but Calenhad refused, stating that if Morrigan had planned on betraying the right of parley, he was no man of honor. Morrigan's allies laughed at that, and Morrigan himself conceded that Calenhad had a point. He allowed Calenhad to return to the castle safely, and launched his final assault. During the assault, both Tenedor and Foranan were killed, but Calenhad found himself in one-on-one combat with Arl Morrigan. In front of all Morrigan's allies, Calenhad defeated the Arl and commanded he call off his armies. The Arl asked Calenhad who he professed to serve now, if both his knight and his lord were dead, to which Calenhad replied that he would do as his honor bade him to, for he had nothing else. "You are not a man known for your honor," Calenhad said, "but I believe you wish to be. You allowed me to live once, and so now I do the same for you. Perhaps if more of our people lived by honor, we would learn to trust each other long enough to live together." And with that, Calenhad withdrew his sword. "I am humbled by your words," Arl Morrigan told Calenhad, dropping to one knee. To his allies he shouted that he now knew he would never be king, but he knew who should be. With that, Morrigan pledged allegiance to Calenhad, whom he named Turn and ruler of Tenedor's lands. From the Legend of Calenhad by Brother Heron, Chantry Scribe, 810 Blessed. So Calenhad really had humble beginnings here. He was a lowly squire and dog handler in the kennels. I do think he was onto something when he said if everybody in the land lived by honor, then we would learn to trust each other and just long enough to live together. I believe that's true in the real world too. I think there's a distinct lack of honor these days with the modern world. It would be nice if we could go back to some semblance of honor, whether that's your family name or other things. Cautionary Tales for the Adventurous. It was then that he realized he wasn't alone. The abandoned camp in front of him was unbelievably welcoming, like a mirage. The fire felt like a warm hand grabbing his heart. It reminded him of a previous life, So long ago, when he was happy, running on the sunflower fields with his boy, the sun on his face, laying next to the fireplace, with his beautiful wife in his arms. He felt a sharp pain in his heart. His thoughts shifted to that fateful day when everything changed. Blood was everywhere. He held the body of his dead wife in his arms. Around him, the ashes of his burned house fell like snow. The stench was terrible. It smelled like Darkspawn. He grabbed his axe, touched the icy cold hands of his boy, and left. He would kill them. He would kill them all. The pain in his heart was unbearable. He opened his eyes and saw the second most terrifying thing he would see in his life. A shadowy wraith leaning over him, leeching his life away. Around him, the camp was gone, replaced by something familiar, almost peaceful. Bones, death, and despair. He wondered if all his life had been an illusion, if he'd ever had a family. For a brief moment, he felt relief. You can't lose something you've never had. But being this close to death brought clarity. He knew it was real. Everything else was the illusion. You could see a smile on his torn face. He had been waiting for this moment for a long, long time. He lifted his weak arms, grasped the demon's face, and kissed it. It felt like kissing a cloud made of sand and dust. Suddenly, all sorrow left him, and with it, the last bit of life he had. Before his limp body hit the ground, it was all over. He was finally free. From Cautionary Tales for the Adventurous by Brother Ramos of Gulherm, 794 Storm. And this is actually a nice little gameplay hint of something that's going to happen to us in the Brazilian forest. We are going to encounter one of these tricky little wraiths in the woods around the Dalish camp, but that is for future reference. Keep this in the back of your mind. So notes. Berwick's letter. Berwick, we need your eyes and ears in Redcliffe. Stay in the village, keep your head down, and watch the castle. Report any changes, and you'll be paid well. A letter in Berwick's possession. We'd know now that this came from Alha, which by extension comes from Turn Logain. I refuse to call him king. Tattered shopping list. Sugar, wheat flour, fillet knife, ginger for grandpa's flatulence, ink, cod liver oil, dried mushrooms, and rogue, or lesion. Also remember to ask if more beeswax will be available soon. A note on crumpled paper. Graffiti in Redcliffe's tavern. Don't eat the cheese. Scratched into the bar of Redcliffe. Correspondence Interrupts. A collection of embarrassing personal communications between the spoiled wealthy and their objects of obsession. A delicate matter. While I am overjoyed at the prospect of having you, an unwelcome guest requires that you excuse yourself by the postern of my estate to avoid a mark upon our reputations. You are filthy, a beast. Such depravity I have never been forced to suffer. Our words are so laden, when they leave your lips is beyond decent imagining. Madame, I love you, Sir Orgold. And we already read Virginia True Royal. Well, that'll be a wrap on that one. And I think we are all caught up with the codexes. Indeed we are. So, we are ready to go ahead and start the defense of the village next episode. So, thanks for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, leave a like and a comment. If you want to support the cause and help improve the channel, there is a tip link in the description below. Otherwise, stay tuned and I'll see you guys soon with more Dragon Age Origins. Take care, guys. Have a good day.